Bell's got a question.
Yeah, maybe jumping the gun here. I remember it was raised, I don't know if it was raised at the last meeting in April, and that remember about the complaints committee. What's happening about that? There's a report coming back about that. I'm sure that was mentioned at that meeting. I'm not quite sure. I think Councillor Scobie or Willie would probably verify that as well.
Okay, that is noted, but I think Rona's got a touch on that one. Just as an update, Graham, I think it's under point 3. Maybe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, this was in response to members' request for a look into how a members' complaint system. So I was waiting on the new advice that was coming out from the Standards Commission. That is out now about operational and strategic matters, and Edinburgh City Council have had a look into members' complaints as well. Their conclusion has not been to bring a system in that covers, I think, the sort of complaints that you had about maybe operational matters. They have gone simply with a complaint system about members complaining about other members, which is, I don't think, the point that was being made at this committee. So I will bring a report on members' complaints to the next committee.
Graham, are you wanting back in? No, you're fine. No, I just wonder. It does refer to 5.4 and 5.5.2 of the previous report. I just wonder if we could expand that slightly and reflect it, so it does reflect that. So what was raised in, so the language is there. It's quite clear. So just maybe I'll refer to the report as well, but it does refer to the particular item being run about members' complaints. If we agree, can we agree that with that amendment? Okay, thanks very much. Thank you. Item number 4 is internal audit reports issued for the first quarter. Oh no, it's not. That's the last minute. There you go. How ridiculous is that? Item 4. Let me get to this. Dundee City Council fraud report by head of finance, procurement, business technology solutions. Okay, it's for yourself, is it? Would you introduce yourself first, please, and then we'll let you say a few words about it, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Hopefully the report itself is pretty self-explanatory. It's really to let yourselves know, as the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Committee, what both Finance and Procurement and Business Technology Solution have done to the recommendations made by Audit Scotland in their report on the Dundee City fraud. You'll see from the report itself that we have assessed our sort of system, and we have assessed the likelihood of a similar fraud taking place in Dumfries and Galloway to be low. We feel our sort of systems are pretty robust and strong. Having said that, we're not complacent about this. We've got to be always sort of vigilant for a potential fraud taking place. But we do believe that the likelihood is low. I say I'm happy to, and James and myself are happy to take any questions on the paper.
Open it up to members first. Graham, Nicol?
Yeah, I see in item recommend reconciliations. Consequently, billing, ordering and payments team are exploring other means of trying to prevent fraudulent invoices being recorded against legitimate suppliers. I've no problem with the concept, but there are suppliers out there who haven't been told about a change, which I understand has taken place in the billing processes. And the bottom line there is that their invoices which they're submitting in the norm, as they submitted them before, are being returned. I mean, just for goodness sake, let them know what they're supposed to do so that they can do it properly. And it's causing some concern, and I hope it gets sorted out very, very soon.
I'll take note of that, Councillor. We did send out an email to all our suppliers on the purchase ledger system, making them aware that the Council was adopting a no PO, no pay approach. And in truth, we've been doing it sort of gentle, taking a gently approach since it came into force in May. At the moment, we're really concentrating on getting in touch with the departments whenever we come across a sort of invoice from a sort of supplier to reinforce to them that they should have provided a purchase order number. But paramount to it is to ensure that all our suppliers and all our clients are sort of paid. So we are taking cognizance of any sort of issues around that. So However, if there's any specific sort of suppliers that have problems, then please let them contact me, and we'll get it sorted out.
Excellent. So Graham, we can leave that with yourself. Any other points or questions for Lindsay or James in particular? I mean, I suppose what we're being asked today then is to note the facts at 2.1 of a recent significant fraud which occurred in Dundee City Council. So if we can note that, certainly, I mean, we're being asked to note in particular. 2.2, note that a review on the lessons for this council to consider made by Audit Scotland on their report has been undertaken by Finance and Procurement and Business and Technology Solutions. So note that has been undertaken. That's obviously within the body of the report. That's happened. And then we've been asked to renew that the review concluded that a comprehensive and robust system of internal control which aims to prevent and detect fraud currently exists for purchase ledger systems and processes, and consequently the likelihood of a similar fraud as that perpetrated at Dundee City Council occurring has been assessed as a low risk. Do we accept it? Okay, with the information we've got in front is that is the case then. I mean, I suppose the one thing that would have interested me, not for today, but is to actually see how it actually works physically. Again, quite good because I've never seen that side of it. Be quite interested in that. I don't know if anybody else is interested in regards to maybe seeing that. Maybe so I've got quite a few nodding heads here, is what I thought. So that's maybe 2.4 then, just that we make accessible for members of this committee, because we're talking about this committee, if they wish, if they request that they can see how this actually works firsthand on screen, so to speak.
I'd be happy to organise that, and you can see how our system sort of works. There's a number of purchase ledger systems that the council use, but over in the Crothers House, the main ones being the Integra FMIS system and the PCOS procurement system. So again, we'd be happy to show members how they work and take any sort of comments, because obviously you're getting, I know from past experience, you usually get the hard end from various sort of suppliers saying, we haven't been paid quickly enough, or haven't been paid. And we're quite happy to discuss any sort of implications or any issues with you when you come over.
I think it just gives us an extra layer of reassurance in regards to that. We're undertaking a scrutiny review in regards to information technology, data sharing, and so on and so forth. The last workshop we had, which you were at, James, the fact that we've seen it, how it worked, just made all the difference to our understanding. It gives us that level of reassurance and much better understanding. So this year we'll have a workshop on it, we'll certainly have greater understanding. So that's a 2.4. Item number 5, thanks very much, gentlemen, for your time. Much appreciated. Item number 5 is our local area network, local scrutiny plan for 2018-19. We have John Boyd here from Audit Scotland. He's got to say a few words to this. Sorry, Grant Thornton, on behalf of Audit Scotland. Maybe I should be saying that, sorry. sorry, John. I was aware of John. I've seen him in quite a few different places now. The purpose of the report today is to ask members to consider the local scrutiny plan for 2018-19 for Dumfries and Galloway Council. It's prepared by the national scrutiny bodies following their shared risk assessment process. So over to you, John, if that's okay. Thank you.
That's it. Yeah. Thanks. The local scrutiny plan brings together the various scrutiny bodies of the council and reflects it's an annual process where we work together to identify the key areas of scrutiny over the current year and over a rolling 3-year period. As your external auditors, we feed into that process and share knowledge and understanding of the council, and also gain knowledge and understanding of the council from the other scrutiny committees to identify areas of particular focus for the current year. The purpose is that we ensure there's a joined-up approach to scrutiny, and that you're not subject to duplication of work from either regulatory bodies or through scrutiny bodies. So the paper is actually prepared by Audit Scotland, and as your local scrutiny lead, and it basically summarises the kind of input from the various scrutiny bodies, and comes up with a sort of high-level plan within Appendix 1 over the sort of detail of scrutiny that will be taking place over the coming year. audit plan at the top. It has been shared, and it obviously goes into a lot more detail around the specific areas of focus, and that's been shared at the previous committee. So this is really just giving you that high level summary. Happy to take any questions on that.
Thanks very much for your presentation, John. Much appreciated. We've got Jane first.
Thanks. It's just an item in page 25, paragraph 11. I noticed on the third bullet point there was areas highlighted in the last year's LSP were that the two major registered social landlords in the area allocating a far lower percentage of stock to homeless applicants. But that actually doesn't tell us than what, or than is it than before, or than other RSLs do in other councils. It's not entirely clear what's actually being got at there.
Thanks. No, I appreciate the comment, and I'll feed that back to Audit Scotland. Thanks.
Very similar for myself, John, on item number 10. I know you're not, it's not your report, and you're doing us a favour, really, but it's could that have been expanded on, because it's very light. I may be aware of the issues. Maybe got my own view in regards to that, but it says the local area network is aware of tensions in the Integration Joint Board, and scrutiny bodies will follow this up as part of the engagement with the Council and the IJB. Can you expand on that at all or not? Is that something maybe feedback, or feed into them, or feedback to us?
So as part of our external audit engagement, we've appointed auditors of both the IJB and the council, as well as actually the health board. So we're seeing it from all parts, and really that paragraph there was just really reflecting at this stage we're aware that there's obviously challenges. I mean, it's not just within the council, but there's obviously pressures across the level of resources that IGBs have, both demand and resource pressures, and that's an area of particular focus as part of our audit work this year.
Okay, thanks, John. I mean, I've got a slightly broader understanding, but maybe come back. It's no John's report, and this is a thing I think I've got to emphasise, so we've got Jane and Wally if you want to come in. But Jane, you come back.
Well, it's thank you. You've made a good point, which I had noted as well. It's not clear. I mean, you could read that it's personality clashes. I think you need to expand that to be absolutely clear what you're getting at, so that because the way it was set up was actually bound to create tensions if one thinks about it. But yeah,
I know we spoke lots about governance and such like, but well, I mean, I say it isn't John's report, but you're certainly more than welcome to come in.
No, it may not be John's report, but for the audit and risk, there's a concern here, and I raised it at the last meeting again in terms of the IJB, their governance, how it impacts on the council in its ability to scrutinise reports. Jane refers to personality clashes, where members, I know of two that have been reported, are in my opinion, a frivolous complaint made against us in terms of a report that we were scrutinising and asking questions, and indeed an officer of the council was included in it as well. So, it's this whole governance issue, and only last night, again, members being told after an event of issues to do with the level of service that's being provided that will have an impact or could have an impact on recipients of that service, as is identified in 9, but it's the level of care individuals may need, and yet we've got an agency who may not be able to do it, whether it's through recruitment or inability in terms of financial resources to provide that. But we as members only find out after it appears in a local paper. Now, where's the scrutiny and advice coming forward? So for me, audit and risk has a big part to play in what risk does the council run in the way that other agencies, i.e. the IJB, are behaving.
No, I completely agree with that, Polly.
It's all right, agree, but what are we doing about it? To try and establish some kind of governance, and I know that the chief executive of the health board is leading on coming back with some understanding of governance, but as audit and risk, where do we stand?
I mean, I've noted that, I picked up in it there, but fair enough, the lady for Audit Scotland isn't here, so could have got a wider understanding of what the tensions are. You picked up some points here, but I think that our annual government statement as well, you'll get another shot there while it come back, and actually, I think we'll get more chance to actually do something about it here. Well, writing this report, I don't think there's overly much we can do, but in this report, okay. Any other points or questions for John, or points to raise? No? No. So, and as far as how will we actually feed that back, just so we're absolutely clear, so Wally's picked up on a point, it's something I do like to, so we've picked up and raised a couple of concerns or issues, how will that feed back to this committee? Maybe that, whether that's for John or whether that's for Claire or Rona, just to say, listen, this is how it'll come back, because it is important that we do see it, if we're raising points, whether it's through an action list or whatever, because the chair and vice chair meet, it is on a weekly basis at the moment, so we get a chance to maybe ask more questions, but it's only fair that the whole committee gets a chance to see all this stuff as we're discussing this. So, is that for yourself, Rona? Would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, I'm sure between us, John and I, will feed these comments back to Audit Scotland, and we could offer Audit Scotland an opportunity to come to the next committee. It was partly my fault that I left it. I didn't know that this plan had been published, and when I noticed it and I wrote to Audit Scotland to invite them, they were already booked up doing best value interviews with the Chief Executive and people today, so they weren't able to come. But I'm sure they offered to answer any questions that you had, and we could offer that invitation for the next committee.
So we'll do a 2.1 and a 2.2, being that we'll get a further report or presentation for the next committee then, particularly tackling the points that have been raised today. Okay, thank you. Is everybody okay with that? So we'll just do that. So 2.
This one carries over then.
I think we'll get a chance to
report.
We'll get a chance to revisit in particular, but I think we need to this. I would imagine this report will come back, Willie, but with an emphasis on the points that have been raised, and that can be picked up either through the notes that, like Claire and Rona are taking, as well as the audio recording. But you picked up stuff, Jane's picked up stuff, I picked up stuff. Jane, you're wanting back in?
Well, I just wanted to say that in the recommendation we are asked, having received a briefing from Audit Scotland, and arguably we haven't received that briefing from Audit Scotland directly, so that can be easily carried through, I think, in terms of that recommendation.
Okay, excellent. So just remove from Audit Scotland at this moment in time in regards to that, and the 2.2 will bring this report back in some form, pick it up in the points that we've raised in particular as members of the committee. Item number 6, which is a Dumfries and Galloway draft annual governance statement for 17-18. The purpose of this report is it presents this year's draft annual governance statement for the members' review and approval. We've got 3 recommendations here: one's to review, one's to delegate to the Head of Legal Democratic Service, and one's to note. So the annual governance statement, and it goes to next week's full council as well. So we've got 2 kind of bites at this cherry, so to speak. So we can do our checks and balances today, so to speak, raise any points, but obviously we'll get a further opportunity next week in regards to this whole paper. I've made quite a number of notes, but do you want to say a few words to it, Rona, first, before we get into questions?
Yeah, thank you, if you don't mind. As it says, this is our open and honest self-assessment of our performance and what I would call all the checks and balances that we've got across the organisation and on what we do. So I prepare that together with a number of other officers and directors, but also in terms of the areas of improvement, these have come from mainly conversations with members during the course of the year about things that they are concerned over. So the areas of for improvement are on page 51. So certainly to refer to the point about the IGB, over the last year, whilst there are governance arrangements in place, and we have the scheme of integration, I have picked up there's a lack of understanding sometimes, not just by members but by officers working those schemes, as to where decisions actually take place, what have we retained, what have we delegated, and where sometimes we've got decisions being made by the 3 bodies still rather than just one. So I think I've tried to recognise those concerns that have come out in individual issues over the year, and to say that work has commenced. There's already been a meeting with senior officers from this council and with the NHS, about trying to produce a document or what the chief has called I think it's a hardwired diagram, is that the right word? To show members clearly where the decisions should take place on different issues and where we are perhaps lacking governance. That, when people, I don't think there's a scheme of delegation that's been put in place in a strong way for the IGB to the officers there, so we're going to work on that and provide the assurance to the council about the statutory duties that we have that we haven't been able to, we can't delegate, and what stays with us. So that's going to be an area of work. I've also picked up about elected member training, that members want a much more flexible way to access training rather than to come to pre-arranged sessions at certain times in certain places. So that will be something that we will do. We've obviously got the transformation programme. We've had Professor Cole's inquiry report that we need to respond to this year, and there's quite a lot of work in that. We are reviewing our complaint system on all levels, as well as the systems that we use to do that, but also just the process itself with a focus on solving problems. We will continue with a focus on homelessness, and that came through in the previous report as well. And we have still to complete the Common Good and Trust Review. So those were what I had picked up from members, but if you have anything else that you want to add, this is your opportunity today that we can add. But I would say that we can't have a list of too many because we've got to have the resources to deliver, and I'd rather have less and actually deliver on them.
Thank you very much for that, for that presentation, Rona. Graham Bell, that is.
Thanks, Chair. Page 39, just looking at the Council's member officer protocol, I still think we've got issues here, and some of the new elected members don't really know the 3-day working rule. It's been broken several times to me in the last few months. Recently, the other day there, we need maybe an email or to be sent, or information sent out to the new elected members about this member officer protocol. There's still issues here. Some people use EMS, and that's sometimes a delaying tactic for elected members as well. It can drag on for a period of time. So I think we need to have this a rigid process adhered to.
Do you have any comments in regards to that? Are you fine?
I think that's a good point. We do need to remember that also we sometimes have new officers that aren't aware of protocols, and we've also got the 5 working days and the 20 days for responding to members of the public. That I think I've had a few complaints about that recently, so we need to remind officers of those protocols.
So Graham's wanting back then, Jane, I've got you.
Thanks, Rona. Obviously, when this complaints committee, whenever it's, the report comes back to this audit meeting, and that, maybe we can incorporate the 3-day working rule as well into it as well, because elected members do want responses within certain times.
I think probably it's maybe someone will look at it in great detail, but I think you bring up relevant points there, Graham, in regards to the member officer protocols and when they're breached. But either or, you've got to look from both sides, but it's this responded within a set timeline. It's quite clear as guidelines, whether that's being passed on to members of staff and so on and so forth, whether it's been adhered to is another thing as well. So it's quite, I think, personally, I think it wouldn't do any of us in this committee any harm to get an electronic copy of that, if that's okay, just to remind ourselves as well in regards to. Jane, I've got you next.
Look, it's quite a small point, but it's an opportunity for mischief making. 2.1 talks about numbers of 16 commitments, and 3.1 talks about 15 in words. So I think we need to decide whether we've got 15 or 16 commitments.
Thank you.
Any other hands coming? Yeah, Wally, I kind of thought you might have picked up on some of the stuff that, as Rona's referred to, at page 51, I think it was. But I did a small typo to start off with, on page 34. It's 2106, it should be 2016, I think. It's something that I do all the time. It's at 3.2, second paragraph. It's a very, very small thing there. I suppose I asked this question very briefly at Policy and Resources, and I see the risk management registers here again. At page 36, it says preparation, the second last bullet point on page 36 is preparation of the annual report on the work of the work and the performance audit risk management committee. There's no such a thing now, is there? So that's maybe a copy and paste. I think we've maybe picked up on that before. It doesn't exist. The role and development of the Council's Code of Corporate Governance and annual governance statements in advance of it being submitted to the approval of the Policy and Resources Committee. I noticed that vice versa. I just want, is it? Aye, so they're out of sync this year, right? Okay, so that'll be addressed going into next year. On top of page 37. Receives quarterly updates of the use of the RIPS, I think that's referring to. I don't think that's any longer the case, is it? I think that's changed.
Yeah, what we agreed was that you would be given an email if there were any if there were no uses of that. We haven't had any RIPSA activity this year again.
I suppose it's just probably for updating. It's the only reason I mentioned it, just probably for update, just and kind of not to prove that I've read it, but I have read it. Ensuring effective 3.9. Page 41, I've picked up ensuring effective counter-fraud and anti-corruption arrangements and are developed and maintained. It's probably more a referral back to how we get on with Ricky Hutton coming down to speak to us. Have we got any update in regards to it? A wee bit tenuous, apologies for doing that as chair, but I suppose we pick it up as an update because we were keen to see him down just to go through that seminar.
That's in the minute. It's been minuted.
Right, okay. Aye, right. So it's mentioned in P&R as well as here. Wally, right over to you.
Yeah, Chair, could I go back to page 38, and it's the second bullet point down. A key function of the Audit and Risk Scrutiny Committee is to scrutinise the performance of the Council to ensure service secure, value for money and the best use of resources. And as we're going constantly into cuts in public services, reduction in funding and finance resources, how do we deal with this in terms of not just whether we're getting value for money, but in terms of the service user that is referred to in here? And I don't know if other members are receiving it, but I'm receiving complaints in terms of the grass verges that are overgrown and the difficulty people have coming out of junctions, visibility, but it comes down to whether indeed there is enough human resources to go out there and do the work. And what risk is the council running at in terms of if the service is not providing what indeed the people expect from paying council tax and so forth? So where do we as Audit and Risk feature in terms of members receiving complaints, and the complaints are not a responsive service, but one that deals with these issues? And that's just one example. There are other examples of service delivery. I could mention beach cleaning, but I'll know in that respect, and this idea that we want Stranraer as a destination. How do we deal with issues where the public are continually complaining, and it generally happens on social media, that they're not receiving the services that they expect, not aspire to, but expect, and we are continually cutting back and will not be able to provide these? How do we deal with it as an Audit and Risk? My other point is not so much on I welcome what Rona's saying. It's on page 40. A particular focus for partnership arrangements has been in health and social care with the integration of joint board, IGB, and it goes on, the health and social care integration scheme was adopted by full council in March 2015. What we've got out there is, in my opinion, is a failure in delivering the services under the IGB, both in health and social care. And in the west of the region, we are under what is called a review, but in actual fact, we have been unable to deliver the services that the people require. And I only had a phone call just before the meeting started this morning on the back of the Cornwall Park, lack of information coming forward as to what's going to happen to the individual's father, because there is a lack of services both in the health and social care in Stranraer. How do we deal with it in terms of IGB, us getting the information, and for us to be able to scrutinise some of these services?
Well, I'll just touch on your first point, and we'll go back to, and as far as audit, risk and scrutiny, I brought the exact same point up at policy and resources last week, and we're looking at the risk management, risk register, and it was visibility displays, which is what you're talking about, risks and in potholes and a particular road, and I'm getting a briefing back in regards to that. I've not had it yet. Certainly more than willing to share that. I think the whole policy and resources, we're getting a briefing back, but it's risk to through the risk assessment. So you've got risk of health and safety, and you've got reputational risk, damage that is to the reputation of the council, and that's so certainly waiting on that feedback coming back in regards to maybe go part way towards. But you're being explicit about how does audit and risk and scrutiny committee actually deal with that. So maybe the 2 points. I wonder if you could expand on that, Rona, in your view, and maybe come back to that after hearing Rona, Wally.
I mean, my thoughts are obviously that, and we're just about to start that cycle again, are about budget templates. I mean, budget templates are prepared that do have impact assessments and that risk should be considered. And, they're all clearly put before members in deciding the budget. If after implementation, it's found that some of those haven't quite, worked out the way that we thought they were, or there's more complaints, or there's bigger impact than we thought, then I think it would be something that this committee might like to consider, is looking at some of the decisions that have been made and have we not properly assessed the risk, or if we have, has there been unexpected consequences, etc. And I think that could be a role for this committee, and it's even through its one of the scrutiny reviews, to choose some of the budget templates. We did talk about one of the scrutiny reviews being about policy delivery, about money that's been put into the policy areas. Has it delivered the positive outcomes? But you may wish to look at some of the templates to look at unexpected negative consequences, and to learn from that for future budget templates.
Could I come back on that? And again, I welcome what Rona is proffering as advice. But just how culpable is the council? Because, we have the budget setting, we have a lead-in by the budget templates and so forth, and decisions are made. But it's the impact of that decision on the service users. If, for instance, there should be an accident, you talked about visibility. Should there be an accident at any of these junctions, and it comes down to that visibility was so poor because of the verges being overgrown and so forth and so on, what's the risk for the council in terms of if it is cited that the council has not kept the verges to the level they are? So it's not just about looking at the template, agreeing the budget, and then for the next year forgetting about it. What's the process for the audit and risk in terms of the examination and the number of complaints that come forward, so that we can then scrutinise, has this been a proper decision in terms of the risk that we would be putting people to?
That was the very points I was making, Willie, as well, at Policy and Resources. I think it's very important, but I think you bring up a really important point. My understanding is that if we've got a particular issue in regards to a particular service or whatever's being provided, and is it statutory is the first thing I always look at, the health and safety, whether it's, what different risks what you've got attached to that. We've actually been told that we'll get a brief in regards to how an officer would actually take forward that assessment as well. But it's very interesting, but the obvious thing to me is the scrutiny review. If you've got a particular item of business that you think's potentially got to be a high risk to the council, maybe the council isn't reviewing it in that way, then it should be through a scrutiny review. That would be my understanding if we want to drill down into particular things. But it's going back to page 35. If you look at it, just for everybody, Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Committee, and there's something like 28 odd bullet points, the level of business. I mean, that's a conflict to me, as in the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Committee is not able to fulfil its remit under its present guise. So it's structured. It used to be 2 committees. It used to have more than twice the amount of committee cycles, and we've halved it, and we've got half the folk doing twice the work. That doesn't add up to me at all. Like, I've brought it up many occasions. That's maybe someone will bring back to full council at some point. We shouldn't have one committee doing the oppositional role, of the official oppositional role, I should say, of the council. We should have should take it seriously. Will they come back, and we've got Jane, and we've got Graham after that.
It's only a small point, because the paragraph I referred to on page 40, page 38, it recognises this the scrutiny role in terms of value for money. What it doesn't recognise, and I believe there should be a paragraph in there to recognise how this impacts on the service and the service users that we should also be scrutinising, and we should have a process for that, so that if there are complaints being made, it's the volume of those complaints, whether indeed we are providing that service, and that the council is not being put at risk or could be culpable should there be an accident and a fatality. So, in my opinion, there should not only be whether we're getting value for money, but in terms of what is the service delivery, and is it meeting all the requirements in health and safety, as you've pointed out, Chair. There's no that paragraph in there.
I believe that as well. I mean, I think if you want to expand that, well, the right way, if you look at the bottom, it talks about the 2 scrutiny reviews that we're undertaking at the moment, and I think that would be the right way to do. If you want to really drill into that, we should put it forward as a scrutiny review. I don't think, again, it will go back to the service committee. You're in a very unfortunate position in regards to your position when it comes to sitting on committees. You're going through your battle with that. Well, maybe getting your voice heard the way you would, but certainly that is a way you can actually have your point heard. Is ask for. Aye, well, there you go. Well, that's our understanding. So we've got Jane, and then we've got Graham. Jane. Oh no, Graham's point's been covered.
Well, just looking at the at what we're being asked to do, I don't think there's any particular problem with the recommendations, and we will all get another go at this through full council. But Chairman, I'm speaking as a member of this committee and listening to what a committee member is saying, and also flagging up to the rest of the members that I am an IJB member. I am not prepared to let lie the statement by a member here that there is failure of performance in the IJB. I deal in facts, and the KPIs at the moment in the IJB, if you look at them in comparison to Scottish national figures, actually, the IJB figures are really not that bad. We are not performing badly at all. I recognise that there are problems for individuals, and we have problems in the West, particularly with recruitment. Totally accept that. But the way to deal with that is to engage with the process, and generally speaking, I think would suggest that one engages with locality offers, and that you scrutinise performance through the area committees, which is already set up. So those are the ways in which all members have an opportunity to engage. Finally, with respect to the issues on verges and roads, one has to come and engage with the budget process. That's where these actually follow through the templates. And if you do that, you will see what is going to be cut in the future. So it's all there.
It's 11:17, and so I think them remarks were important what you've made, Jane. I'm not going to allow it could possibly let us a discussion going on for the next half hour, just going back and forward. So what we'll do is we'll move to our recommendations. So at 2.1, we have reviewed. We were being asked to review the annual governance statement of 17-18 as per the appendix. We've reviewed. We've made quite a number of remarks and statements, and there's been some corrections that'll be, I would imagine, will be amended before it goes to full council, or maybe could be pointed out at full council.
Full council papers have already been released, but I will do another version to make sure members get that ahead of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. And 2.2 should delegate the head of legal democratic services to arrange any necessary revisions, which was, we've just had the reassurances that will be done before it goes as an amended paper. And 2.3 is to note that the annual governance statement for 17-18 will form part of the unaudited financial accounts for the full council next week as well. Okay, thank you very much. Item number 7, we're moving on to valuation of the council assets. I think we've got Alistair. Alistair here's probably to speak to that, I think. Alistair Johnson that is, so we'll give him just a wee second to get set up. So the purpose of this report is following a request by the committee on 21st of September last year. This report provides members with an explanation of how valuations of the council's assets are undertaken and how we obtain comfort that assets are appropriately valued within the annual accounts. We've been asked to note the information provided in relation to the council asset valuation process. So it's a note and report. But Alistair, are you speaking to this?
Speak.
Right, sorry. Good morning. Yeah, Alistair Johnson, Service Leader, Estates Management. I have prepared this report in sort of consultation with colleagues in finance. So I've been joined by Ian Morgan, who's the Treasury and Capital Manager, to assist in answering or dealing with any questions members might have. I wasn't at the meeting where the discussion took place, but hopefully this report covers the issues and questions raised and provides the information members were seeking. But myself and Ian are happy to answer any queries or questions members may have.
Okay, thanks, Alistair. Any members got any points, questions? Patsy, you're first.
Thank you. I just wonder, we have quite a lot of asset transfers at the moment that transfer for £1. I just wonder what the future implications for that are should a community group that perhaps take on the asset implode and cease to be. And I just wonder if we should look at the risk to the council for that, if we are duty bound to take that asset back. And wonder if we should do a scrutiny review on how we do these things, and also do we future proof for the situation where perhaps a community group then sell on that asset for a lot more than £1, and do the council get a proportion of that money back because we have in essence given it away? And I just wonder what we do and what's in the contract when we sign over these community assets.
Okay, I'm not sure your question actually directly relates to the subject of the report.
Call it
However,
a sugarly nail.
I'm happy to try and answer the question. Yes, as you say, there's a number of, in fact, it seems to be a sort of a steadily increasing number of community asset transfers that are either taking place or are in the process, and often, or usually, you might say that the community asset transfer and the request is that the asset be transferred at a nominal sum. We would normally expect the people we're transferring the asset to be a constituted body, and we would always ask for a copy of their constitution or articles of association. And normally we would expect to see something in that provides that if that organisation ceases to exist, the asset would be transferred to another organisation with similar aims and objectives. So that's a sort of a first thing. We would also normally put some form of clawback clause into the agreement, or provide that if they're unable to transfer the property on to a similar organisation, that the council does have the opportunity to get the asset back. So I believe that the issues you've raised are covered in the process that we go through.
I have concerns about the word normally. I mean, I would hope that it was always. And I would like to have reassurance that we do this. And I don't, if this is not the right report to do it with, I just wonder where we can do that so that we can have a look at what's going on, because there's quite a lot going forward, and we have to look to the future for maybe 20 years, 25 years down the line. It's not tomorrow with a constituted group. It's when that goes wrong. What's the situation, and how would we as a council deal with it, or the community that has the asset to deal with perhaps doesn't have anybody that wants to take it on. And I don't know quite where we can review this situation, whether it's here or somewhere else.
I was at the Strategic Asset Board a couple of weeks back, and there was a paper goes to that board where Property and Architect Services are identifying potential assets that are now not viewed as required by the council. And there's valuations put against that, and yes, some of those valuations are then surpassed by its transfer to the community for only £1. What Paul McCullough did point out at that in that paper that he presented was they do go into a detailed agreement with that community to say, well, actually, if we gift you this asset, who is then responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance? Because if after 20 years the council is just going to get a property back that's not been touched, then it's, there's a financial implication and risk to the council to pick that back up. So for each of those assets, they do look at that process and that kind of like, I suppose, contract in going into moving it out of the council's ownership. I'm not 100% sure of the actual committee flow and how that works. I think it's Strategic Asset Board and then it goes to Policy and Resources, but it goes through various steps of governance before it's agreed that that asset is surplus to requirements for the council, and then there's the contract behind that supports the move out.
I'll just ask Claire to come in just for a quick second. She's got a comment, Patsy, on that.
Yeah, just that obviously I'm saying that the report goes to Policy and Resources for decisions. Communities Committee also receives an annual report on community asset transfers. In fact, I'm sure they received one a couple of meetings back.
Just for reassurance, so they get sight of that stuff there as well. Jane, you're next.
Thank you. Just thinking about 3.9 versus 3.22. The suggestion is that valuations are undertaken by somebody with sufficient support. Actually, it's knowledge, skills and understanding, but the suggesting may be that we don't have the same level of resource that is available to the other 31 councils through CoStar Suite. I suppose I'm wondering whether what level of risk there is to that, to the council, that we don't have that information. How much would it cost to belong to CoStar Suite? Can we borrow somebody else's? So that's first point. And the second point is 3.24 standard procedure? Is that a prudent assumption, the standard procedure, where we talk about capital spend being greater than 10% of the last valuation? Is that standard stuff?
Thank you. CoStar Suite is something that is used by a lot of local authorities. I think we feel that it very much centres on property transactions in the sort of central belt. So we don't feel that we would gain a huge amount from it. And a lot of local authorities are feeling that it's actually a very expensive service, and I think a lot of them are actually becoming quite sort of disillusioned with the information they get compared to the price they're actually paying for it. But and we did actually get quite a good introductory offer, but I think the problem seems to be that once they've got you sort of on board, they start racking the fees up, and it becomes quite expensive. But from my perspective as a valuer, obviously the more information I can get, the better. So my own sort of viewpoint is that if the council are prepared to pay for it, then it assists me in just making sure that I've got all the best information available to me.
And so your question against 3.24 in terms of the 5-yearly cycle and the 10% movement, as I understand things, that is a kind of standard risk-based approach to things. And I suppose the best examples you could give that are with us just now is once like one of the schools for the future moves off assets under construction and becomes a live asset, it moves across the categories within the annual accounts. And so for St Joseph's College, there's an element that has to be revalued because there's such a significant shift in the type and quality of the building. So that we would kind of like hit within that. But the 10%, I believe, is just a kind of like a risk-based audit approach in terms of, well, actually, what's the material movement? If you go into, I know the annual accounts are just in the kind of published draft state at the moment, but bringing this all alive comes into, unless the note numbers have changed from year to year, in note 18, and you'll see all the various assets and all the revaluations, schedule, etc., that takes place on that 5-yearly cycle, and the numbers that fall out of that. And there's significant numbers. Net book value last year was 800 million. So that's this approach and this policy, your IAS, the IFRS standards that give you the rules behind the valuations of assets, so that everybody's standard in their presentation. That comes out through in note 18.
Got Malcolm then, Graham.
So just across the road from the debacle of DG Nunn, and we're pouring money into that, and I take it at the minute it's just basically valued at the cost element, and then when it transfers, is it then immediately revalued when it's transferred, or is it once it goes into use? Or
yeah. I'm not sure what the valuation would sit at whilst it's under construction. I'm not sure. Go ahead. No, so I'm not actually sure what DG1 sits at in terms of valuation at the moment. Whether, like if you like the example, if you remortgage your house and suddenly you have no kitchen or bathroom, it's valued at £0 because it's almost like a non-saleable asset to pass on if you defaulted. I don't know how that works with a building that size, because there's an inherent value in terms of the site and what is currently there. But obviously, when it moves to completion, there's a valuation that put on it, because it effectively you could sell that asset as a finished leisure centre, etc., which would have a high value. But that would then move into the accounts in terms of, rather than assets under construction, and there might be a material move to say, well, actually it's now other land and buildings worth X million. So I don't know the answer to what it's valued just now in the accounts.
Well, actually, you probably should, because it says here in 3.3, it's an asset under construction, so it's measured at historical cost. So that says to me that's what it will be on the balance sheet at the moment. That's what 3.3 says, unless I'm missing something.
I can advise you that on the current asset valuation of DG1, I'm not sure whether you're actually referring to previous sort of historic accounts in terms of the figure you're quoting, but the current asset valuation of DG1 is 11,500,000, and it's sort of basically taking account of the fact that we've got a site that's worth something. We've got external works, the car park and certain parts of it are worth something, but the actual building itself, we were aware of the figure that was the sum of money that was required to reinstate the property back into its fully functional state, and that was effectively sort of deducted from the value. So it does take that into account. So the building's probably, you could say, pretty much got nil value in the asset value.
Yeah, that's actually not, I mean, at the end of the day, if I go back to page 53, 3.3, if it's an asset under construction, it was measured at historical cost. And, I'm not concerned so much about the actual, figures. I understand what you're saying with your valuation. I'm quite happy. So the valuation at the moment is not at historical cost.
The valuation at the moment is its current value, reflecting the cost required to put that property back into fully functional condition.
Yeah, so therefore it is not at historical cost. That's it.
Okay, we've got that point. Graham, are you on? We're at the same point, okay. I haven't got any other members' hands up. Where are the time? 11:34. Graham Bell. Yep, you next.
Thanks, Chair. It's really on 3.12, the main type of properties of value. We're talking about schools here, offices, and industrial property. That obviously the Maxwell High, the schools moving to the northwest campus. Obviously, there's going to be a site valuation. Have you got a site valuation for demolition? What the site? Say you take the Maxwell High schools flat, and what's the value on the site? Normally in social housing, you used to value 10 to 12,000 a house per house. So what's the value on that Max High site if it was demolition cost? So would that be in the books, or is that just taking the current building at the present time?
Well, once the school has been closed, the next step would be that the property would be declared surplus. That changes the category of that currently the school's held as what they call other land and buildings. Ian will correct me if I'm wrong in the accounts. So currently the school's actually valued at what they call existing use value, and it's valued because it's still an open operating school at the moment. So it's valued as it's valued to the council, and it's valued using what's called the depreciated replacement cost method of valuation. Once the school's closed and it's declared surplus to the council, then it would be revalued as a site. And depending on whether or not the building is demolished immediately, that demolition cost would also be factored into the valuation. And the valuation would be based on its development potential, and if it's a social housing site, how many units the planners would advise they would allow on the site. And as you say, somewhere around 10,000 a unit would be sort of the going rate. Does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other questions or points? Let's say we've been asked to note the information provided in relation to the council's asset valuation. I made it some points, but they're not overly important. I can leave them to another point in time. Okay, thanks very much, Alistair. And what your name? Sorry. Ian. Sorry, Ian. Thank you. Thanks for both of these. Health and Safety Progress Report is item number 8. This report provides members with a performance progress update on corporate health and safety activity against the Corporate Health and Safety Plan for 16-19 for the period 1st October last year to 31st of March this year. And we have Sue White, you got to speak, and Stuart Clanahan, but Sue, you're speaking to it. What about you, Sue, if you want to say a few words in regards to this?
Happy to elaborate on the report in any way, or to take questions, or go through if you like. Yep.
I've not got this on, sorry about that. Any points, item number 8 we're on, so any points or questions need to raise for Sue, or Stuart for that matter, in regards to our health and safety progress report. 6 months current, like I say, for the back end of last year through to March, end of March this year. There's obviously some members training, I think, came up with one in regards to health and safety. One question that was posed before I came in and was previous experience, previous training, so on and so forth. Does that count in regards to members training? Because some members feel that they've been trained health and safety, all sorts of different aspects of that. Would that count in regards to this or not?
Obviously, all elected members have different backgrounds and experience with health and safety, but what we like to do is within the training is actually say, well, what arrangements are available in the council, and for you to have an opportunity to actually ask questions about more detailed questions about health and safety arrangements and set up within the council. So I think it is quite useful for you to attend, even if you feel that you've perhaps got some health and safety experience. We do cover not just basic health and safety legislative requirements for members, but also guidance for you about what you should expect within the council as well.
I mean, I did attend the last one. It was over by 3/4 an hour. It was kind of, there was a lot of discussion, there was a lot of detail, and it was good. The harbour even came up when I'm looking at Councillor Ingalls there, but the harbour came up in regards to safety issues there. But if nobody's got any points, questions, Wally.
Yeah, and I know each of the health and safety committees, or joint committees that we held, there was a number, or the issue come up in terms of absenteeism and reasons for it, and all the rest. But I don't see them in this one as an exceptional report, or indeed any reference to the absenteeism and the pressure that staff are being put under, if you like, and is that a contributory factor to the level of absenteeism? Maybe Sue or Stuart could make reference to that. It's not in the report as an exceptional report, but are we on top of this? And again, there is an exceptional report in terms of the number of the times the Joint Safety Committee has met. I think there was one cancelled last week for lack of business, or as it was reported. Perhaps you could make reference to that, please.
Chair, just to advise the member that we report performance and exception report on sickness absence to Policy and Resources Committee, and in fact the committee last week received a very detailed appendix around what the current position is in terms of sickness absence.
It was covered that, Willie. Communities the week before as well, similar stuff came up in regards to the high levels of sickness absence compared to, I think it's about 12.23 days or something like that compared to, no, it's in there. I think it's delivered through the service himself, isn't it? Sue?
Sorry, yes. Just saying that there is one target relating to work-related ill health, and that's at Appendix 1, HNSC 6.4 on page 67. Percentage of staff with work-related ill health. There's a target of 1.05. It's been set at 1.5, so we're within that particular target for work-related ill health. I think the issue is more for non-work-related absence rather than work-related reasons for absence. That's showing in the stats. Obviously, you know, people might be off but not saying it's to do with work-related, and it might come up in other ways, but that's what is actually recorded. The work-related ill health in that figure includes from an accident at work, and if somebody's put on their record that it's work-related stress.
Thank you. The Joint Safety Committee, that is just, I think we have to pick up on it, particularly its members in particular, I think, but I think that was just about the new council, so on and so forth. That's back on track now, isn't it? It is. But when it was cancelled, I take it, the fact that it was offered but there was no business, that wouldn't come up as a negative. That would be a good opportunity.
Yes, quite right. The Joint Safety Committee was certainly offered, and it's the unions that came back and said that to stand it down, not us. Yeah. So that would be okay, yes.
Okay, that will come up as a positive. So 2.1 we've reviewed as per, and 2.2 we have actually scrutinised some of the exception reports as per Appendix 2. Anybody else got any other points? Item number 9, thanks very much Stuart and Sue for that. Thank you very much. Risk management update. The purpose of this report is to provide members with an update on how risk management is being used in the council. Oh, sorry. Oh, is it? What is it? What is it? The annual government, sorry. That has been labelled wrong, that's right. Oh, it's our internal audit reports. Sorry, item number 9, that's our waste one. Let me find that. Apologies. I'm reading from the report itself rather than the agenda. We've got Mr. Garrity here. Welcome, Kevin. So, let me just see exactly where we are. Item number 9 is internal audit reports in the second quarter for this year. There's only one. It's got a copy to follow there. I'm trying to find mine as we speak. Found it. Here we go. I've read it. Kevin, just for yourself, do you want to say a few words to it? And we'll move on. Nothing to add to that or anything at all? Okay, straight to questions. Anybody got any questions in regard to this? I thought it was a pretty straightforward report. Jane?
Yeah, straightforward, but quite worrying, don't you think? I must admit, in 4.21, there is no way to identify the actual tonnage collected and actual costs of the commercial waste service. I mean, should we not be anxious about this? Kevin, on paragraph 4.21. Given that that you use the expression that in 4.20 that notionally the commercial waste service makes a surplus, I don't derive colossal comfort from this particular report. How concerned should we be?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the report focuses on the administration of charges. As an addendum to the report, trying to add some value into it, we put this section in around financial sustainability. We thought it's a contribution towards achievement of corporate plan and so on. So we'll be trying to do, it won't be the case in every single audit that we do that we have that opportunity, but we're trying to add some value through having this section in. So the section really is trying to give you an overview of the service and issue that it faces, or the issue that we face, in that it's not a discretionary service in the sense of people have the right under the law to ask for this service, but what you can do is price it in such a way as to discourage people from asking for that service. So it becomes a service that I think almost certainly will attract attention in the future in terms of, do we continue with it? What options have we got? So the obvious question is, how's it doing? And the answer is, we don't know. And the reason for that is because it's very closely integrated with the domestic waste service. As a result, we don't have the data in terms of measured data about tonnages that are being lifted and costs of the service itself. So in this discussion with the service, a number of points were put to us. I think that are important and valid, and we've tried to reflect in this discussion, which is to say that certainly for rural areas, the commercial waste service, because it's integrated with the domestic waste service, is very important. It provides support to businesses. It provides these businesses with access to reasonable cost commercial waste uplift, which, if they were to obtain from other sources, may be quite expensive. That integration saves us money as well in terms of achieving the service. So the fact that there's a bin lorry going past the premise anyway, collecting domestic waste, they might as well pick up the commercial waste at the same time. However, in more urban areas, there's more opportunity. There are alternative providers. You could start to, if you were operating on a wholly commercial basis, you could start to try and differentiate for types of waste. Some types of waste may be more valuable in terms of recyclates or opportunities than other types of waste. So you would introduce a pricing scheme maybe that reflects that. Overall, the service is confident that the presence of the council in commercial waste actually provides a balance to the market. In effect, we stop commercial waste providers from running away in terms of their prices, overpricing, charging. If you have a closed market, you can then charge what you like. So it's felt very strongly within the service that this is a very valuable service, in that it helps balance the economy and it helps balance charges to businesses, and it supports businesses. But there's no doubt that there are opportunities potentially to do it differently. So that's kind of what this discussion is saying. In terms of knowing exactly what's in there, there is work going on to try and establish these figures a bit better. But I have to say, I think there is the potential for this to be an area for scrutiny review. It may be premature at this time, reflecting the fact that the service is locked in some ways in relation to the waste PFI contract. The waste that's collected, commercial waste that's collected, belongs to that contract in the sense of we have a contractual obligation to deliver it to the company involved, but that may or may not change in the future. And if it changes, things may move very fast. So hence the sort of the question about this is, I think we need more information. We need to know more about what's going on so that options can be generated. The service is working on that, but I think it does lend itself to a potential for a scrutiny review if the committee was interested in doing that. But it's perhaps not time critical. It's not something that has to happen this week, next week, so to speak. But it's perhaps something for your list of things to look at in the future.
Thanks, Kevin. That's really well answered. The way I looked at it was, we've got an administration that's running the council, and we've got a really contentious item being the PFI, the waste PFI, how we've got to deal with that, how the council's got to deal with that, I should say, but we do have the administration that's running the council, and you look at our remit, the previous reports, and it's on our papers, that is exactly like Kevin said, right? It will get to a point in time we'll say, okay, we have got a statutory duty in which to, if asked, to lift waste, commercial waste, but we're doing it the best way, and I think at the point that it does keep a level market, or it stops it's spiraling out of control in regards to cost. I think that is a good thing, it should be there, but it has to be at cost recovery probably. So when I read this, that was my conclusion. It may be a scrutiny review, but it's at the right time. Time has got to be right. Right now is far too early because there's too much going on. There's potentially far too much change coming anyways. And it might address it, it might not, but if it doesn't, then it's a relevant point to go back to, depending on the outcome. Did I see your arm up, Graham?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. On the sort of same thing, 4.17 amounts written off in respect to waste collection charges total £470. Credit notes were raised for £55,100. Although this figure may not be solely related to waste collection, well, what else does it cover?
Yes, Chair. We had a difficulty in being confident. We got a report out of the sundry debtor system, And we had the problem is that commercial waste write-offs and credit notes are not differentiated. It's in a block. So frankly, it would involve quite a lot of work to try and peel it back and to get to a figure. So I agree, it's not a great figure to have included. It's to give you a scale of figure. Against £1.2 million collected, it's not bad in some senses. The other things in there, you know, possibly garden waste maintenance service, there's a couple of other bits and pieces that we could see were in there. But without taking each individual account, analysing it and trying to understand what it related to, we couldn't come up with a better figure in the time available. So I apologise, Chair.
Thanks very much, Kevin. That's very much appreciated. No further points or questions? We will pick a subject up again for sure. We will. Okay, thanks very much for that, Kevin. Thanks very much. Item number 10. Let me get my papers correctly notified first, which is Risk Management Update, again, a report by Head of Legal Democratic Services, which is yourself, Rona. Yep. Oh, Richard Fox is here to speak to it. Richard, do you want to say a few words in regards to that? You get the same option as what you just gave Kevin. It's either say something or not, it's up to you, but if you want to say a few words, just straight to questions, okay?
Chair, I don't seem to have item 10. No,
it's marked item 9. Is that right? Sorry. Well, that's why I got confused before. I actually brought this one in earlier. It was just a slight. We've got a copy to follow, which was item 9, copy 10. So it's marked. So it starts on page 77. So we're absolutely clear, and it's running about the risk management update. So the purpose of this report provides the members with an update on how the risk management is being used in the council. In summary, reflecting the recommendations of our external auditors. We've been asked to note the coordination lead role of the internal audit has on risk management and embedding within the council. 2.2, we're being asked to consider the summary of the use of risk management within the council, prepared in response to the recommendations of the external auditors. 2.3, we're being asked to note the council's risk management policy has been updated, and this is subject to consideration that policy resources passed last week. It was subject, maybe we need to change that rather than has it was, has been updated, and this was subject to rather than is. 2.4, when asked to be subject to approval, which it was approved, I think, is that correct? Just we're absolutely sure that Policy and Resources Committee will be asked to consider the deployment of this at our September meeting, so we'll see this again in September. And 2.5, we're being asked to note that September meeting, this committee members will be asked to consider the information and reporting necessary to support the exercise of its delegations. Content with that? Any questions? Don't think we have, because we've got to see it back in September. It was at PNR last week, and we'll get into the body of this properly as we go into the back end of the year, early autumn. Thanks very much for your time, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Item number 11, I think we're going to now. Get the paper sorted out. Scrutiny review, these two, listen, we're 11:53, so we're bang on time. Item number 11, item number 11, so we're absolutely, I'll outline this. You've got the workshops, so you've been heavily involved. So this is about our 2 scrutiny reviews. Our first scrutiny review is in regards to growing the local economy through the procurement process, and that's item number 11. Number 12 is improving information sharing, data sharing, feedback from the workshops. So it's just about discussing how we move forward. So those of us, everybody we've got a copy so we see what we're doing. So the first one, like I say, purpose is to provide feedback from the workshop held on the 14th of May past in its regards to the local economy, growing the local economy through the procurement process. We've been asked at 2.1 to consider the evidence and information collected at the workshop held on the 14th of May 2018 as detailed in appendices 1 to 3, which is extensive for those who have read it. Really had to leave some of that workshop, but it was excellent what I'd seen. Jane carried on. I think these workshops are very valuable. I've mentioned that in other meetings, and some folk get excited about these meetings, and some folk looked at me as if there's something wrong with me. But I enjoy these workshops. I do think we get a chance to. This is our legacy by getting into the meat and gravy of this stuff. We really will. So 2.2, we've been asked to agree that this should be added to the evidence gathered to grow the local economy through the procurement process scrutiny review. I'm content to do that. If anybody else has got any points you'd like to add, I think we've missed through the workshop. So we'll go forward as part of this process. My understanding is, so I can be corrected if I'm wrong, we'll go forward to the next set of workshops, take into consideration this level of information, and that will report back to, is it, we've still got two committees in this, or one? What's the, oh, sorry, I should have introduced Sheila and Andy. I didn't see he's moving in there, so we've got Sheila Mohinett and Andy Reid for any potential questions that we have in regards to this and the next one. So I think, so as far as only one question for me in regards to the process, I think we've had one meeting, so we've got a committee, workshops, another committee, workshops, last meeting, a third committee cycle, then we refer to our recommendations to full council. Just so we could be reminded which stage we're at now, please, if that's okay.
So in relation to the procurement review, we've held one workshop, one session, and this is the update from that. The next opportunity would be 2 more workshops in relation to procurement. This will be identifying businesses and people involved in the procurement process. So we've currently looked at the council side of it, how we operate with economic development and with the procurement service. We'll now get some businesses and individuals to give us their feedback on how they operate. And then the final workshop will be a discussion about what recommendations members think they'd like to take to the final committee.
First class. We okay with that? Excellent. We'll move on to the next one. Item number 12, which is our, like I say, of improving information, sharing data and sharing feedback from workshops. I should probably ask if you got anything to add, but it's, I mean, it's a robust report from both of you, to say the least. It's very robust. There's a lot of information in there. Again, it provides feedback through the workshops, 14th of May and 11th of June for this one. Jane, I've got your hand coming up straight away, so I'll just let you in.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I agree with you. I think both of these sessions, the previous one and this one, are extremely useful, give everybody opportunity to ask questions and to consider what they need to know. I felt that we went slightly too deeply into how each individual council system worked. Less so with the NHS, but and it is useful. But what I think we didn't necessarily get at was it's where the gaps occur, where discharge, somebody, say an older person gets discharged from the medical side of things to social care. Did we actually really drill into how connections and information sharing is going to make that a seamless process? And I'm not utterly certain that we did. So I just want to add that in to be absolutely certain that we capture that question. I mean, as it stands here, absolutely great, but all I'm suggesting is that maybe it's pointing out that that's perhaps what's missing.
Great, I think we'll definitely consider that. That's about the seamless transition, say, for a acute setting or wherever it may be, back into a community or homely setting, just to make sure and beyond, so back to rehabilitation or whatever that potential care is. So I know we've touched on that, so it maybe isn't absolutely explicit in regards to this. So I think the great workshops will come back to that. There's a lot of notes, take a lot of information, great reports coming back, and I think both these things will be legacies for this committee as it moves forward in regards to a positive legacy, that is. Got any points? No? Excellent. So 2.1 is to consider the information collected in the 14th to 11th, which we've done by reading. 2.2 is agree that it should be added to the information as we move forward for the data sharing scrutiny reviews. Right, I've got one item of any other business. Claire, you should be made aware of this now. It's very, very brief. Rhonda, we just made it, and it will be very, very brief. So we've finished item number 12. Thanks very much for your time. Into any other competent business. And we all received a letter from a resident from Dumfries, wrote to myself, and so it's just in regards to how we progress that. So I just think from this perspective, I'll be in contact with that particular person and I'll feed back to either the committee. We may end up with a scrutiny review, I don't know, but I will make sure that we feedback. So just so we're absolutely clear, and that's highlighted. So I was written to as chair, and that will be addressed before we meet again, hopefully within the next months. And if it needs a scrutiny review, the committee will make that decision at that point in time. That's it. That's the only other competent business I had. Wally?
If you would mind me indulging you, there was a reference made to a failure. I made reference to a failure in services. For the sake of the record, I'm more than happy to share. It is my belief and my opinion that there is failure in the services west of the region, particularly, and there was reference made there in the last in terms of discharge, people going back, there's respite, there's EMI beds, inadequate EMI beds available, so I can confirm where I believe there is service failure. So it's for the record. I know you didn't want a to and fro, but I just want that placed on the record.
Okay. I think, Willie, through time, I would imagine, because of what's happening, it's a lot of stuff happening through the Health and Social Care Partnership. I think at some point we'll end up with a scrutiny review, one way or another. We're speaking about governance, we're speaking about tensions and so on and so forth. So I think there was something that'll come through that, and we'll get into all the level of detail that MD would require, and maybe even more. So, okay, thanks so much for your time, everybody. It is 12 o'clock exactly. Thank you.